All right, chapter 14, last one of this week. Woohoo! Balancing micro and macro social work practice, roles, theories, and intervention strategies. The big idea for this chapter is that sometimes helping the client means changing the system. All right, some key talking points here based on the reading. Number one, clinical work and advocacy are not opposites. Okay, so keep that in mind. We are going to incorporate advocacy and working with systems on behalf of the client or with the client in our clinical work. And we perform many roles. So we perform a variety of roles outside of clinician. Advocate, right? So we work on behalf of and with our clients. We don't want to just advocate for clients, we want to advocate with clients, and we want to equip our clients to be able to advocate for themselves. Broker, we are connecting or linking clients to resources. Educator, we are constantly providing psychoeducation to our clients. We are educating them, and not just about things like, where do you feel stress in your body, or maybe why are you having this particular reaction to something, but we're also educating on what are their rights, right? So going back to more macro level stuff, educating on their housing rights or legal rights. These are all things that we can teach clients who are dealing with systemic problems. We act as case manager, so we coordinate all of the different tasks that need to happen, and we make sure that everyone who's part of a client's case is doing exactly what they're supposed to do for the client. We're mediators, so we mediate on behalf of the client. Keep in mind, remember, a mediator is different from a negotiator. So when we're going into a mediation, we ultimately want both sides to come out feeling successful and happy. We want both sides to win. We're not necessarily on the side of our client. We're in the middle, neutral party. We organize, so we plan and keep track of everything involving the case. And facilitator, so we facilitate more than just interventions. We facilitate hard conversations with those outside of the client through collaboratives once we get a release of information. We facilitate meetings, we facilitate groups, okay? So all of these are the different roles that we might play when we're working with a client and the systems that come in contact with the client. Next, resource problems require resource intervention. So, for example, therapy is great, but it cannot solve food insecurity. Okay, so we're not just listening for the clinical stuff, but what are the systemic issues that are directly impacting a client? Remember, we go all the way back to one of our very first chapters where we talked about a client cannot be successful unless their basic needs are met. So paying attention to those resource pieces and figuring out how do we intervene to provide those basic needs for the client, so that our therapy and our therapeutic interventions can be effective. Repeated individual problems may reveal systemic problems. So, for example, if like 10 or 20 of my clients are encountering some of the same barriers, I might think, is this actually an individual problem? Or might we be looking at a policy or organizational problem? And then what do we do about it? So, at this point, our focus maybe might shift from a more micro level focus to a more macro level focus, right? Or more macro level intervention where we're reaching out to legislators, we're bringing something to public leaders or public officials' attentions, or we might even choose to switch gears from advocacy to the role of an activism, a role like going to the Capitol, lobbying, bringing an issue to the attention of those who are in power so we can make larger systemic policy changes. And finally, empowerment matters. So, whenever possible, and I mentioned this earlier, we want to advocate with the client rather than simply for them. It's easy for us to advocate for a client, but if we're teaching them skills to do it on their own and perhaps we're doing it with them, wow, how empowering that can be for our clients. One thing to remember, social workers intervene with people and the environment. So don't forget that systemic piece. See you next week.